The night Sienna Vale disappeared, her son called the only man who could find her, and it wasn't her husband. Liam Carter was 3 minutes into reading his daughter a bedtime story when his phone exploded with panic. Sienna's boy sobbing, saying, "Mom won't answer, Dad's gone, the house is empty." Liam drove through red lights to get there. What he found wasn't a missing person. It was a woman sitting barefoot in her own driveway at midnight, knees pulled to her chest, staring at nothing, the kind of broken that doesn't come from one bad night. It comes from years of holding everything together until the floor finally gives out. If you want to see how a single father and a brilliant CEO rebuild their lives from the wreckage, stay with me until the end. Hit like and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. Liam Carter had exactly 12 minutes before his daughter's bedtime routine collapsed into chaos. He was balancing a picture book on one knee and a sippy cup on the other when his phone started vibrating on the nightstand. He ignored it. Emma was 5, and 5-year-olds had a radar for distraction. If he picked up that phone, she'd never settle. "Daddy, you skipped a page." "No, I didn't." "You did. The bear didn't find the honey yet." Liam sighed and flipped back. The phone kept buzzing. He glanced at the screen. It was Mason, Sienna's 12-year-old son, his best friend Derek's kid. Mason never called him. Mason barely answered texts. Emma tugged his sleeve. "Daddy." "Hold on, sweetheart." He swiped to answer. "Mason, what's—" The sound that came through the speaker wasn't words. It was gulping, choked up panic. The kind of crying that happens when a kid is trying not to lose it completely and failing. "Mason, slow down. What's wrong?" I can't find her. Mom's not answering. Dad left and she's not in the house." Liam's stomach dropped. "What do you mean your dad left?" "He took his stuff. He left. And Mom won't come inside. I don't know what to do." Mason's voice cracked. "Can you come? Please?" Liam was already on his feet. "I'm coming right now. Where are you?" "Home." "I'm home. But she's outside and she won't talk to me." "Stay inside, okay? Lock the door. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He hung up and looked at Emma, who was staring at him with wide, worried eyes. "Is Mason sad?" "Yeah, baby. I need to go help him real quick." "Can I come?" "Not this time." He kissed her forehead and carried her down the hall to Mrs. Nguyen's apartment. His neighbor was in her 70s and had a sixth sense for emergencies. She opened the door before he knocked. "Go," she said, already reaching for Emma. "I've got her." Liam ran. Jeez. Sienna Vale's house sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac in one of those neighborhoods where every lawn looked like it had been measured with a ruler. Big trees, tasteful lighting, 2-car garages. The kind of place where people smiled at each other and never mentioned money because they all had enough of it. Liam pulled up to this curb and killed the engine. The house was dark except for one light upstairs, probably Mason's room. He scanned the driveway, the front porch, the flower beds his friend Derek used to complain about weeding. Nothing. Then he saw her. Sienna was sitting on the concrete just outside the garage, her back against the wall, knees drawn up, arms wrapped around her shins. She wasn't crying. She wasn't moving. She was just sitting there in a sleeveless blouse and dress pants, barefoot, staring at the driveway like she was waiting for something that wasn't coming. Liam's chest tightened. He'd known Sienna for years, ever since Derek introduced them at some backyard barbecue when they were all younger and stupider. She was the sharp one, the one who always had her life together. CEO at 30, perfect house, perfect family, the kind of woman who made everyone else feel like they were still figuring out how to be adults. This wasn't that woman. He got out of the car and walked toward her slowly, the way you'd approach someone standing on a ledge. "Sienna?" She didn't look up. "Sienna? It's Liam." Still nothing. He crouched down a few feet away, keeping his voice low. "Mason called me. He's worried about you." Her jaw tightened. That was the only sign she'd heard him. "Can I sit?" She didn't answer, but she didn't tell him to leave either. He took that as permission and lowered himself onto the concrete beside her, leaving a careful gap between them. The driveway was cold through his jeans. The night air smelled like cut grass and sprinkler water. They sat in silence. After a long moment, she spoke. Her voice was flat, scraped raw. "He's gone." Liam didn't ask who. He already knew. He packed a bag, she continued, still staring straight ahead. Took his laptop, his watch, the good scotch, and he left. She laughed, but it was a bitter, broken sound. Didn't even slam the door, just walked out. I'm sorry. Don't. She shook her head. Don't do that. Don't apologize for him. I'm not. I'm sorry you're sitting out here alone. Sienna's breath hitched. She pressed her palms against her eyes, hard, like she could push the tears back in by force. Mason saw the whole thing. Derek didn't even wait until he was asleep. Just told me he couldn't do this anymore and left. In front of our son. Liam felt a surge of anger so sharp it surprised him. Derek had been his friend for 15 years. They'd gotten drunk together in college. Stood up at each other's weddings. But right now, Liam wanted to drive to wherever Derek was and break his nose. What did Mason say? Liam asked. He asked if it was his fault. Her voice cracked. He's 12. And he asked me if his dad left because of him. Jesus. I told him no. I told him it wasn't about him. But I don't think he believed me. She dropped her hands and looked at Liam for the first time. Her eyes were red-rimmed and glassy. I don't even know if I believed me. It's not his fault. I know that. Do you? She flinched. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're sitting out here like you did something wrong. Like you're the one who walked out. Sienna's expression hardened. You don't know what you're talking about. Maybe not. But I know you shouldn't be out here by yourself. I'm fine. You're not. I am. Her voice rose sharp and defensive. I'm fine, Liam. I've been fine for years. I built a company from nothing. I run a team of 60 people. I closed a 7-figure deal last week. I'm fine. Okay? I don't need anyone to... Okay, he said again, quieter. She stopped. Her shoulders sagged. The fight drained out of her as fast as it had flared up. I don't know what I need. Liam nodded. He understood that feeling better than he wanted to admit. Can I get you inside? Just so Mason knows you're okay. Sienna hesitated, then nodded. She tried to stand, but her legs wobbled. Liam caught her elbow, steadying her. She pulled away immediately. I've got it. He let her go and followed her into the house. Inside, the place looked exactly like it always had. Tasteful furniture, clean lines, family photos on the walls. But it felt different, hollow, like someone had taken all the air out of the room. Mason was sitting on the stairs, his phone clutched in both hands. When he saw his mom, he jumped up. Mom! I'm okay, honey. Sienna's voice shifted instantly, smoothing into something steady and reassuring. The CEO voice, that's the mom voice, the one that said everything was under control even when it wasn't. I'm sorry I scared you. Mason didn't look convinced. Are you sure? I'm sure. He glanced at Liam, then back at his mom. Is Dad coming back? Sienna's mask slipped for half a second. Then she pulled it back into place. I don't know, but right now you need to get some sleep. It's late. I'm not tired. Try anyway. Mason didn't argue. He just nodded and trudged back upstairs. Liam watched him go, his chest aching. He remembered being 12. Remembered the night his own dad didn't come home. Remembered his mom pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. Once Mason's door closed, Sienna sank onto the couch and put her head in her hands. I don't know what I'm doing. Liam sat down across from her. You're keeping it together for your kid. That's what you're doing. I lied to him. You told him you didn't know if Derek was coming back. That's not a lie. That's the truth. I should have seen this coming. She looked up, her eyes hollow. I should have known. The late nights, the distance, the way he stopped looking at me. I ignored all of it because I didn't want to deal with it. And now Mason's the one paying for it. This isn't on you. Isn't it? Her voice cracked again. I worked 60-hour weeks. I missed dinners. I missed games. I chose the company over my family. Did you cheat on him? She blinked. What? No. Did you lie to him? No. Did you walk out on your kid? Of course not. Then this isn't on you. Liam leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Derek made a choice. A shitty, selfish choice. You don't get to take the blame for that. Sienna stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed again, That same bitter, broken sound.
You're not supposed to defend me. You're his friend. I'm your friend too. Are you? Liam frowned. What kind of question is that?
I don't know. She looked away. I don't think I have friends anymore. I have employees, I have business contacts, I have people who want things from me. But friends? She shook her head. I don't remember the last time someone showed up just because they gave a damn. I'm here. You're here because Mason called you. I'm here because I give a damn. Sienna's throat worked. She didn't say anything, but her eyes went glassy again. Liam stood up. When's the last time you ate? I don't know. That's not an answer. Lunch, maybe. I don't remember. He walked into the kitchen and started opening cabinets. You got eggs? Liam, you don't have to. I'm not asking. He found a carton of eggs in the fridge, some cheese, a bell pepper that was only slightly wilted. You're going to eat something. Then you're going to drink water. Then we're going to figure out what happens next. I don't want to figure out what happens next. Too bad. He cracked eggs into a bowl and whisked them with more force than necessary. Sienna watched him from the couch, her expression unreadable. After a moment, she got up and joined him in the kitchen. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. I know. Then why are you? Liam poured the eggs into the pan and glanced at her. Because you'd do it for me. Would I? Yeah, you would. Sienna didn't argue. She just leaned against the counter and watched him cook. When the omelet was done, he slid it onto a plate and handed it to her. She stared at it like she'd forgotten what food was. Eat, he said. She picked up a fork and took a small bite. Then another. Then she kept going, and Liam realized she must have been starving. He made himself a cup of coffee and leaned against the opposite counter, giving her space. They didn't talk. The kitchen clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a dog barked once and went quiet. When she finished, Sienna set the plate down and looked at him. Thank you. You're welcome. I mean it. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't. You would have figured it out. You always do. I'm not so sure about that anymore. Liam set his mug down. Sienna, listen to me. You're one of the smartest, toughest people I know. You built a company from scratch. You raised a good kid. You survived tonight. You'll survive tomorrow too. I don't want to just survive. Then don't. She looked at him confused. What? Don't just survive. Decide what you actually want and go after it. I don't know what I want. Then figure it out. Sienna's jaw tightened. It's not that simple. I didn't say it was simple. I said it was possible. She stared at him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. Then she shook her head. You make it sound so easy. It's not easy. It's just the only option that doesn't end with you sitting on the driveway at midnight for the rest of your life. Her breath caught. For a second, Liam thought he'd pushed too hard. Then she nodded, just once. Okay. Okay? Okay. She straightened, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I need to get Mason through the next few days. I need to call a lawyer. I need to figure out how to explain this to my team without falling apart. One thing at a time. Right. She took a shaky breath. One thing at a time. Liam glanced at the clock. It was almost 2 a.m. You should get some sleep. I won't be able to. Try anyway. Sienna smiled faintly. You sound like me talking to Mason. Maybe he's not the only one who needs to hear it. She looked at him, and for the first time that night, something in her expression softened. You're a good man, Liam. I'm just a guy who showed up. That's more than most people do. Liam didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. I'm going to head out, but call me if you need anything, okay? I mean it. I will. He started toward the door, but her voice stopped him. Liam? He turned back. Yeah? Can you stay? He froze. What? Just... She hesitated, wrapping her arms around herself. I don't want to be alone in this house tonight. I know that's asking a lot, but I don't think I can do it by myself. Liam looked at her, really looked at her. The polished, untouchable CEO was gone. What stood in front of him was just a woman who'd been gutted and was trying not to fall apart. Yeah, he said quietly. I can stay. Relief flooded her face. Thank you. He pulled out his phone and texted Mrs. Nguyen, letting her know he wouldn't be back until morning. Then he followed Sienna into the living room. She handed him a blanket and a pillow, gesturing toward the couch. "I'll be upstairs if you need anything," she said. "Okay." She started to leave, then paused in the doorway. "Liam?" "Yeah?" "I'm glad you came." "Me too." She nodded and disappeared up the stairs. Liam stretched out on the couch, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet. Too quiet. He could hear the faint hum of the air conditioner, the creak of the floorboards above him as Sienna moved around her room. He didn't sleep. He just lay there, thinking about the look in her eyes when she'd asked him to stay. Thinking about Derek walking out. Thinking about Mason sitting on those stairs, clutching his phone like it was the only solid thing in the world. And he thought about Sienna, brilliant, untouchable Sienna, sitting barefoot in her driveway, staring at nothing. Somewhere around 4 a.m, he heard footsteps on the stairs. Sienna appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a robe, her hair loose around her shoulders. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No." She hesitated. "Can I sit?" "It's your house." She sat down on the edge of the coffee table, facing him. "I keep thinking about what you said, about figuring out what I want." "Yeah?" "I don't think I've ever asked myself that question." "Not really." She looked down at her hands. "I've spent my whole life doing what I was supposed to do. Good grades, good college, good job, good marriage." She laughed bitterly. "Except none of it was actually good. It was just expected." Liam sat up, the blanket pooling around his waist. "So what do you want?" "I don't know." She met his eyes. "But I think I want to find out." "That's a start." "Is it?" "Yeah, it is." She was quiet for a moment, then she said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you ever feel like you're just going through the motions? Like you're living someone else's life?" Liam thought about that, about the years after his wife left, about raising Emma alone, about the exhaustion that never quite went away. "Yeah, sometimes." "How do you deal with it?" "I don't know if I do. I just keep showing up for Emma, for myself, and I hope that's enough." Sienna nodded slowly. "I think that's the first honest answer anyone's given me in a long time." "People don't like honest answers. They're messy." "I'm tired of things being neat." "Then stop making them neat." She looked at him, and something in her expression shifted. "You're different than I remember." "Different how?" "I don't know. More real, I guess." Liam smiled faintly. "I've always been real. You just didn't notice." "Maybe I should have." The air between them changed. It wasn't anything obvious, just a small shift, like the moment before a storm, when the wind picks up and you know something's coming. Sienna stood up abruptly. "I should let you sleep." "Sienna, thank you for everything." She didn't wait for a response. She just turned and went back upstairs. Liam lay back down, but his mind was racing now. He told himself it was just the exhaustion, just the weird intimacy of being in someone else's house at 4 a.m, just the aftermath of a crisis. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something had just started, something neither of them was ready for. Liam woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of someone moving around in the kitchen. For a confused second, he thought he was back in his own apartment. Then he remembered where he was. He sat up, his neck stiff from the couch, and checked his phone. 6:30 in the morning. 3 texts from Mrs. Nguyen saying Emma was fine and asking if he wanted her to take the kid to school. He typed back a quick yes and thanks, then dragged himself upright. Sienna was standing at the kitchen counter in different clothes, jeans and a plain white t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked exhausted, but more put together than she had any right to be after the night she'd had. "Morning," she said without turning around. "Morning." Liam's voice came out rough. He cleared his throat. "You sleep at all?" "Maybe an hour." She poured coffee into 2 mugs and slid one across the counter to him. "You?" "About the same." She nodded like she'd expected that. They stood there in silence, drinking coffee, not quite looking at each other. The sunlight coming through the kitchen window was too bright, too normal, like the world hadn't just imploded a few hours ago. "I called my lawyer," Sienna said finally. "Already?" "I wanted to get it done before I lost my nerve." She stared into her mug. "He's drafting the paperwork. Said he'd have something for me to sign by the end of the week. Liam didn't know what to say to that. Congratulations felt wrong. I'm sorry felt worse. So he just nodded. Derek texted me this morning, she continued. Her voice was flat, carefully controlled. Wanted to know when he could come get the rest of his things. What'd you say? I told him to go to hell. She looked up, and there was a flicker of something fierce in her eyes. Then I blocked his number. Good. Is it? She set her mug down too hard. Coffee sloshed over the rim. I don't know what I'm doing, Liam. I don't know how to do this. I've been with him since I was 22. That's 8 years. I don't remember how to be alone. You're not alone. You've got Mason. That's not what I mean. I know. He moved around the counter, grabbed a dish towel, and started wiping up the spilled coffee. But you're going to figure it out. Same way you figured out everything else. Everything else didn't feel like this. Like what? Like I'm standing on a cliff and someone just pushed me off. Liam tossed the towel aside. Then stop standing still and start moving. You can't fall if you're already in motion. She stared at him. That doesn't make any sense. Sure it does. You're scared because you're waiting for the impact. So stop waiting. Start walking. Sienna laughed, but it wasn't bitter this time. Just tired. You have a very strange way of giving advice. It's worked so far. Has it? I'm still here, aren't I? She looked at him then, really looked at him, and something passed between them that neither of them acknowledged. Then she glanced away. I need to get Mason up for school. You want me to clear out? No. The word came out too fast. She caught herself. I mean, you don't have to. Unless you need to get back to Emma. Mrs. Nguyen's got her. Then stay, please. She hesitated. I don't think I can do the normal mom routine in front of Mason without backup. Okay. Sienna left to wake her son, and Liam finished his coffee standing at the window, staring out at the driveway where he'd found her last night. It looked different in the daylight. Just a regular suburban driveway. No ghosts, no wreckage. He heard footsteps on the stairs and turned to see Mason shuffling into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. The kid looked like he hadn't slept either. Hey, buddy, Liam said. Mason blinked at him. You stayed? Yeah. All night? Your mom asked me to. That okay? Mason shrugged, but Liam saw the relief in his face. Yeah, it's okay. Sienna appeared behind him, her hand resting briefly on Mason's shoulder. You want breakfast? Not hungry. You need to eat something. I said I'm not hungry. Mason, I don't want to go to school. The kid's voice cracked. Everyone's going to know. Everyone's going to ask questions. Sienna's composure wavered. Honey, no one knows yet. Dad's going to tell people. You know he will. He won't. How do you know? Because I know your father. Her voice was firm, but Liam could hear the doubt underneath. And even if people do find out, it's no one's business but ours. Mason's jaw tightened. I don't want to talk about it. Then don't. They're going to make me. Sienna crouched down in front of him, even though he was almost as tall as she was now. Listen to me. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Not your friends, not your teachers, not anyone. If someone asks, you tell them it's private. And if they push, you walk away. Understand? Mason nodded, but he didn't look convinced. Liam cleared his throat. You know what I did when my dad left? Both of them turned to look at him. I told everyone he was on a business trip, Liam continued, for like 6 months. Even after it was obvious he wasn't coming back, I kept saying it. People thought I was in denial. Maybe I was. But it gave me time to figure out how I felt before I had to explain it to anyone else. Mason stared at him. Did he ever come back? No. Do you miss him? Liam thought about that. Sometimes. But mostly, I'm just glad I don't have to pretend anymore. Sienna's eyes met his over Mason's head. There was something raw in her expression, something grateful and broken at the same time. Mason took a shaky breath. Okay. I'll go to school. You sure? Sienna asked. Yeah. He grabbed a granola bar from the counter. But I'm taking the bus. I don't want you to drive me. Mason, please, Mom. I just need things to be normal for a few hours. Sienna hesitated, then nodded. Okay, but you text me when you get there. I will. He grabbed his backpack and headed for the door. Sienna followed him, and Liam heard them talking in low voices on the porch. When she came back inside, she looked like she'd aged 10 years. "He's going to be fine," Liam said. "You don't know that. Neither do you, so you might as well believe the version that doesn't make you want to climb back into bed and stay there." She laughed again, that same exhausted sound. "You're relentless, you know that?"
So are you. You just forgot for a minute. Sienna shook her head, but she was almost smiling. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her expression shut down. "Work?" Liam guessed. "My assistant wants to know if I'm coming into the office today." "Are you?"
"I don't know." She set the phone down like it had burned her. "I can't think about budgets and board meetings right now, but if I don't show up, people are going to ask why. And I don't have an answer that won't make me sound like I'm falling apart." "So tell them the truth." "What? That my husband left me and I spent the night sitting on my driveway like a crazy person?"
"No. Tell them you're taking a personal day. You don't owe them more than that."
Sienna stared at him.
"I've never taken a personal day in my life."
"Then it's about time you did."
She was quiet for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone and typed out a message. When she set it down again, her hands were shaking. "I just told my assistant I'm not coming in." "Good. I don't know what to do with myself now."
Liam looked at her, at the tightness in her shoulders, the exhaustion in her face, the way she was holding herself together with nothing but sheer force of will. "When's the last time you left this house for something other than work or errands?"
"I don't know. A few months, maybe."
"Get your shoes."
"What?"
"Get your shoes. We're leaving."
"Liam, I can't just—" "Yeah, you can. You just told your office you're taking the day off. So take it. Get out of this house before it suffocates you."
Sienna opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again.
"Where are we going?" "I don't know yet. Somewhere that's not here." She stared at him for another few seconds. Then she went upstairs and came back down with sneakers and a jacket. "This is a terrible idea. Probably. I should stay here. I should make a plan. You should stop shooting all over yourself and get in the car." That startled a real laugh out of her. "Did you just—" "Yeah, I did. Come on."
They left through the front door, and Liam walked her to his car, a beat-up Honda that had seen better days. Sienna looked at it like she'd never seen a vehicle with rust spots before. "This is your car. Don't start." "I wasn't going to say anything." "You were thinking it." She slid into the passenger seat and Liam got behind the wheel. He didn't have a destination in mind. He just drove. Out of the neighborhood, onto the highway, away from the cul-de-sac and the dark house and the driveway where she'd been sitting 12 hours ago. Sienna didn't ask where they were going. She just stared out the window, watching the city fall away behind them. After about 20 minutes, she spoke. "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?"
"This?" She gestured vaguely. "Just leaving. Not having a plan, not being in control. You don't have to know how. You just have to do it." "That's not helpful." "Sure it is. You're doing it right now, aren't you?" She didn't answer, but she didn't ask him to turn around either.
They drove in silence for another half hour. The suburbs gave way to open fields, then to rolling hills dotted with trees. Liam had no idea where he was going. He was just following the road, letting the miles put distance between them and everything that had happened. Eventually, he pulled off onto a side road that led up to a lookout point. He'd been here once before, years ago, when he needed to think. It was just a clearing at the top of a hill with a view of the valley below. Nothing fancy, just space and sky and quiet. He parked and got out. Sienna followed, her arms wrapped around herself even though it wasn't cold.
"What is this place?" she asked.
"Nowhere special, just a spot I found once." She walked to the edge of the clearing and looked out over the valley. The morning light was soft, turning everything gold and hazy. Below them, a river wound through the landscape like a silver thread. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. "Yeah." They stood there in silence, side by side, but not touching. Liam could feel the tension radiating off her, like she was a spring wound too tight, about to snap. "I lied to you," she said suddenly. Liam glanced at her. "About what?" "Last night, when I said I didn't know what I wanted." She kept staring out at the valley. "I know exactly what I want. I've always known. I just didn't let myself admit it." "What do you want?"
I want to stop pretending. Her voice cracked. I want to stop smiling through meetings when all I want to do is scream. I want to stop making excuses for why Derek never came to Mason's games. I want to stop acting like I have my life together when I can barely make it through the day without falling apart. Liam didn't say anything. He just listened. I want to be angry, she continued, her voice rising. I want to be furious. I want to throw things and yell and break something, but I can't. Because if I start, I don't think I'll be able to stop. So don't stop. She turned to look at him, her eyes wide. What? Don't stop. Be angry, yell, break something, whatever you need to do. I can't just... Why not? There's no one here but me, and I'm not going to judge you.
Sienna stared at him, her breath coming faster. Then she turned back to the valley and screamed. It wasn't a word. It wasn't even a sound that made sense. It was just noise, raw and desperate and full of everything she'd been holding in. It echoed across the hills and faded into nothing. When she stopped, she was shaking. Tears were streaming down her face. I hate him, she whispered. I hate him so much. I know. He didn't even fight for us. He just gave up. Like we didn't matter. You mattered. He just didn't know how to see it. That's not good enough. No, it's not. She turned to him, her face a mess of tears and anger and grief. Why are you here, Liam? Why are you doing this? Because you needed someone to show up. But why you? He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time he let himself admit the truth he'd been avoiding since the moment he found her sitting in that driveway. Because I care about you, he said quietly, more than I probably should. Sienna went still. What? You heard me. Liam, you can't. I'm not saying it because I expect anything. I'm saying it because it's true. And because you asked. She stared at him, her chest heaving. I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything. But she didn't look away, and neither did he. The air between them felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. Liam could see the exact second she made a decision. Her expression shifted from shock to something else, something raw and reckless. She closed the distance between them and kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was desperate and messy and full of all the things neither of them knew how to say. Liam froze for half a second, his mind screaming at him that this was a bad idea, that she was vulnerable and he was an idiot. But then she made a broken sound against his mouth, and he stopped thinking. He kissed her back. His hands found her waist, pulling her closer. She gripped his shirt like she was afraid he'd disappear if she let go. The world narrowed to just this, her mouth on his, her fingers digging into his shoulders, the sound of her breathing. When they finally broke apart, they were both gasping. Sienna's eyes were wide, her lips swollen. I'm sorry, she said. I shouldn't have... Don't. Liam's voice came out rough. Don't apologize. But if you're going to regret it, fine, but don't apologize for it. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. I don't regret it. Good. But I don't know what it means. It doesn't have to mean anything. Doesn't it? Liam stepped back, putting space between them before he did something stupid like kiss her again. Sienna, your life just fell apart. You don't have to figure out what this is right now. What if I want to? Then wait. Give yourself time to breathe, to think, to make sure this is what you actually want and not just a reaction to everything that happened. She looked like she wanted to argue, then her shoulders sagged. You're right. I know. I hate that you're right. Yeah, I get that a lot. She laughed, but it was shaky. This is a mess. Yeah, it is. I don't know what I'm doing. Welcome to the club. They stood there for a long moment, not touching, not talking, just existing in the same space. Finally, Sienna wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. Can we stay here a little longer? She asked. As long as you want. She nodded and walked back to the edge of the clearing. Liam followed, keeping a careful distance between them. They sat down on the grass, looking out over the valley. Tell me something, Sienna said after a while. Like what? Anything. Something real. I'm tired of pretending to be fine. I want to know what real looks like. Liam thought about that. Emma's mom left when she was 6 months old. Sienna turned to look at him, surprised. I didn't know that. Most people don't.
I don't talk about it much. He picked at the grass. She said she couldn't do it. The whole mom thing. Said it wasn't what she thought it would be. So she left. Just packed a bag one day and walked out. Haven't heard from her since. I'm sorry. Don't be. Emma's better off without her. Is she? Yeah, she is. He glanced at Sienna. But there are nights when I wonder if I'm screwing her up by doing this alone. If she's going to grow up feeling like she wasn't enough to make her mom stay. She will, Sienna said quietly. But not because of you. Because that's what kids do. They internalize everything. Mason? Yeah. She pulled her knees up to her chest. He already asked me if this was his fault, and I know he's going to keep asking himself that for years. No matter what I say. So we do the best we can, and hope it's enough. Is it? I don't know. Ask me in 20 years. Sienna smiled faintly. You're good at this. At what? Being honest without being cruel. A lot of people can't do that. I've had practice.
They lapsed into silence again. The sun climbed higher in the sky. Birds called from the trees. The river below glittered in the light. I'm scared, Sienna said eventually. Of what? Everything. Being alone. Failing Mason. Losing my company. Waking up in that house every day and remembering what I lost. She paused. Being with you. Liam's chest tightened. Why does that scare you? Because it feels too easy, too right, and I don't trust things that feel right anymore. Fair enough, but I can't stop thinking about it. About what? This. She gestured between them. You. The way you looked at me when I asked you to stay. The way you didn't make me feel pathetic for falling apart. You're not pathetic. I feel pathetic. That's different. She looked at him, and there was something vulnerable in her expression that made his heart ache. What are we doing, Liam? I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. Sienna nodded slowly. Then she leaned her head on his shoulder. It was such a simple gesture, but it felt monumental. Liam went still, barely breathing, afraid to move and break whatever fragile thing was happening between them. Can we just sit here for a while? She asked. Yeah, we can do that. So they did. They sat on the hillside in the morning light, not talking, not planning, not trying to figure out what came next. Just being. And for the first time since Derek walked out, Sienna didn't feel like she was drowning. When they finally got back in the car, it was almost noon. Sienna checked her phone and winced. 17 missed calls, she said. Work? Derek. Liam's jaw tightened. You gonna call him back? No. She turned the phone off and tossed it in her bag. I'm done giving him access to me whenever he feels like it. Good. They drove back toward the city in comfortable silence. When they reached Sienna's neighborhood, she directed him to park a block away from her house. I don't want the neighbors to see your car, she explained. They'll talk. Let them. Easy for you to say. Yeah, it is. He put the car in park and looked at her. But you can't control what people think, Sienna. You're going to drive yourself crazy trying. I know, but I'm not ready for the questions yet. Fair enough. She reached for the door handle, then stopped. Thank you for today, for last night, for everything. You don't have to thank me. I do, because I don't think I would have made it through without you. You would have. You're stronger than you think. Maybe. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. But I'm glad I didn't have to find out. She got out of the car and started walking toward her house. Liam watched her go, his chest tight with things he couldn't name. Just before she turned the corner, she looked back. Their eyes met across the distance. Then she was gone. Liam sat there for a long moment, staring at the empty street. Then he drove home, his mind replaying that kiss over and over again. He knew it was a bad idea, knew she was vulnerable and confused and probably didn't know what she wanted. Knew he should have stopped it before it started. But he also knew that when she kissed him, it felt like the first real thing that had happened to him in years, and that terrified him more than anything else. When Liam got home, Emma was sitting at the kitchen table with Mrs. Nguyen, drawing pictures with crayons. She looked up when he walked in, her face lighting up. Daddy, you're back! Hey, sweetheart. He scooped her up, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Sorry I was gone so long. It's okay. Mrs. Nguyen made me pancakes. Emma held up her drawing. Look, I made you a picture. It was a stick figure family. 2 big people and 1 small one. Liam's throat tightened. That's beautiful, baby. That's you and me, she said, pointing. And that's Mommy. Liam's chest went tight. Emma hadn't mentioned her mother in months. Yeah? Mrs. Nguyen said Mommy had to go away for work. She gonna come back soon? He shot a look at Mrs. Nguyen, who gave him an apologetic shrug. I had to tell her something, the older woman mouthed. Liam set Emma down and crouched to her level. Mommy's not coming back, honey. We talked about this, remember? But maybe she'll change her mind. I don't think so. Emma's lower lip trembled. Why doesn't she want to see me? It's not about you, baby. It's about her. Some people just aren't ready to be moms. But I'm good. I can be better. You're perfect. This isn't your fault. Emma started crying and Liam pulled her into his arms, his heart breaking. This was exactly what he'd been afraid of, that she'd grow up thinking she wasn't enough, that she'd spend her whole life trying to fix something that was never broken in the first place. Mrs. Nguyen quietly excused herself, and Liam carried Emma to the couch. He held her while she cried, stroking her hair, whispering that he loved her, and she was enough, and nothing about this was her fault. Eventually, she fell asleep against his chest, exhausted from crying. Liam sat there holding her, his mind drifting back to Sienna sitting on that hillside, saying she was scared of being with him because it felt too right. He understood that fear better than he wanted to admit, because this thing between them, whatever it was, felt dangerously close to something that could matter. And mattering meant risking everything. His phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. Thank you again for today. I needed it more than you know. He stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Any time. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Can I see you tomorrow? Liam's pulse kicked up. He should say no, should give her space, should let her figure out what she wanted without him muddying the waters. But his fingers were already moving. Yeah, where? Somewhere that's not my house. I can't think straight here. I'll pick you up. 10? Perfect. He set his phone down and looked at Emma, still sleeping in his arms. He thought about what Sienna had said earlier, that kids internalize everything, that they spend their lives asking themselves why they weren't enough to make their parents stay. He thought about Mason, asking if his dad left because of him. He thought about the wreckage people left behind when they walked away without looking back. And he promised himself that whatever happened with Sienna, he wouldn't be another person who made her feel like she wasn't worth staying for. The next morning, Liam dropped Emma off at school and drove to Sienna's house. She was waiting on the front porch, dressed in jeans and a sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked better than she had yesterday, less haunted, more present. Hey, she said, sliding into the passenger seat. Hey, sleep okay? Better than the night before. She buckled her seatbelt. Mason asked where I went yesterday. What'd you tell him? The truth, that I needed to get out of the house for a while. He didn't push for details. She paused. He's not talking to Derek. Won't answer his calls. That's his choice. I know, but I feel guilty. Like I should be encouraging him to maintain a relationship with his father. Why? Sienna blinked. What do you mean, why? He's still Mason's dad. Being a dad is more than biology. Derek walked out. He doesn't get a free pass just because he shares DNA with the kid. That's harsh. It's honest. She was quiet for a moment. You really don't pull punches, do you? Not when it matters. I'm not sure if I find that comforting or terrifying. Both is fine. She smiled despite herself. Where are we going? You'll see. He drove them out of the city again, this time heading east toward the coast. It was a longer drive, almost 2 hours, but Sienna didn't complain. She just stared out the window, watching the landscape change from suburbs to farmland to salt marshes. I haven't been to the ocean in years, she said as the first glimpse of water appeared on the horizon. Why not? No time. Work, life, the usual excuses. Those aren't excuses. They're choices. She glanced at him. You're doing it again. Doing what? Being brutally honest. Would you rather I lie? No, but maybe a little sugarcoating wouldn't kill you. Sugarcoating never helped anyone figure out what they actually want. Sienna shook her head, but she was smiling.
You're impossible. So I've been told.
They reached the beach around noon. It was a weekday, so the place was mostly empty. Just a few locals walking dogs and a couple of surfers in the distance. Liam parked and they got out, the salt air hitting them immediately. Sienna closed her eyes and breathed deep. I forgot how good this smells. Better than boardrooms? Everything's better than boardrooms. They walked down to the water's edge, their shoes crunching on the sand. The waves rolled in, steady and relentless, and Liam felt some of the tension in his shoulders ease. There was something about the ocean that made everything else feel smaller. I got the divorce papers this morning, Sienna said suddenly. Liam looked at her. That was fast. I told my lawyer to rush it. I want this done. She bent down and picked up a shell, turning it over in her hands. Derek's already contesting it, wants to fight for the house, for custody, for everything. What do you want? I want him to disappear. I want to wake up and have this all be over. I want Mason to stop looking at me like I'm about to fall apart. She threw the shell into the water. I want to stop feeling like I'm drowning. You're not drowning. How would you know? Because you're still standing, still fighting, still showing up for your kid. He turned to face her. Drowning people don't do that. Maybe I'm just good at faking it. Maybe. But I don't think so. Sienna looked at him, and something in her expression cracked. Why are you so sure about me when I'm not sure about myself? Because I see you, the real you. Not the CEO version or the perfect mom version, just you. And what if the real me is a mess? Then you're a mess. So what? So what? She laughed, but it was edged with disbelief. Liam, I run a company. I have employees who depend on me, a kid who needs me to have my life together. I can't afford to be a mess. You're already a mess. You're just pretending you're not, and pretending takes way more energy than actually dealing with it. She stared at him. You're infuriating. Yeah, but I'm right. That doesn't make it less infuriating. He smiled. Come on, walk with me. They headed down the beach, staying close to the water. The tide was going out, leaving behind tide pools filled with tiny crabs and seaweed. Sienna rolled up her jeans and waded into the shallow water, letting the waves wash over her feet. This is freezing, she said. That's the point. What point? Feeling something other than numb. She looked at him, and he saw understanding dawn in her eyes. Is that what you do when things get too heavy? Sometimes, yeah. Does it work? Depends on the day. Sienna nodded and kept walking, the water splashing around her ankles. After a while, she said, I kissed you yesterday. I remember. I shouldn't have. Why not? Because I'm not thinking straight. Because my life is falling apart. Because you're Derek's friend, and this is messy and complicated and probably a terrible idea. All true. So why didn't you stop me? Liam stopped walking and turned to face her. Because I didn't want to. Sienna's breath caught. Liam, I'm not saying we should do anything about it. I'm not saying this is smart or that the timing's right. I'm just saying I didn't want to stop you, and I'm not going to pretend I did. She stared at him, the waves crashing around them. What do you want from me? I don't want anything from you. I just want to be here. With you. However that looks. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. She shook her head, but she was smiling. You say that a lot. Because it's true a lot. They stood there in the water, the ocean swirling around their feet, the wind whipping their hair. Liam could see the exact moment Sienna made another decision. Her expression shifted from uncertain to determined. I want to kiss you again, she said. Okay. But I'm scared. Of what? That I'm using you to feel better. That this is just a distraction. That I'm going to hurt you when I figure out what I actually want. Then hurt me. She blinked. What? If that's what it takes for you to figure out what you want, then hurt me. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. That's not fair to you. Let me worry about what's fair to me. Sienna searched his face, looking for something. Doubt, hesitation, a reason to pull back. But Liam just stood there, steady and sure, waiting. Finally, she closed the distance between them and kissed him. This time it was different, slower, less desperate, like she was testing the weight of it, trying to figure out if it could hold. Liam let her lead, his hands resting lightly on her waist, careful not to push for more than she was ready to give. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard.
I don't know what I'm doing, she whispered. Neither do I. But you're okay with that? Yeah, I am.
She laughed, shaky and uncertain. You're either the bravest person I know or the stupidest. Probably both. They stood there for another moment, the water lapping at their feet, the sun warm on their faces. Then Sienna stepped back, putting space between them. I need to tell you something, she said. Okay, I haven't been happy in a long time. Not really. I thought I was. I thought I had everything I wanted, but somewhere along the way I stopped recognizing my own life. She wrapped her arms around herself. Derek leaving, it didn't just break my heart. It broke the illusion that I had control over anything, and that terrifies me more than being alone does. Liam nodded. I get that. Do you? Yeah, when Emma's mom left, I spent months trying to figure out what I did wrong, what I could have done differently, how I could have made her stay. He looked out at the ocean. It took me a long time to realize that it wasn't about me. She made a choice, and I couldn't have changed it no matter what I did. How did you get past it? I stopped trying to. I just accepted that some things don't have answers, and I focused on the things I could control, like being there for Emma, like building a life that didn't depend on someone else sticking around. Sienna was quiet for a long moment. I don't know how to do that. Yes, you do. You're already doing it. Am I? You filed for divorce. You took a day off work. You're standing here instead of hiding in your house. That's progress. It doesn't feel like progress. It feels like chaos. Sometimes they're the same thing. She smiled faintly. You have an answer for everything, don't you? Not everything, just the stuff that matters. They walked back up the beach and found a spot to sit on the sand. The sun was high now, warming the air, and Sienna tilted her face up to it. I could stay here forever, she said. Why don't you? Because I have responsibilities. A company, a kid, a divorce to finalize. All of that will still be there tomorrow. That's not how life works, Liam. Maybe it should be. She looked at him, something softening in her expression. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just tired of watching people run themselves into the ground trying to control things they can't. Is that what you think I'm doing? I think you're doing what you've always done, pushing yourself to be perfect because you're afraid of what happens if you're not. Sienna's jaw tightened. You don't know me as well as you think you do. Maybe not, but I know that look. I've seen it in the mirror. She turned away, staring out at the water. I'm not perfect. I never have been. I know. Then why do you keep acting like I have all the answers? I don't think you have all the answers. I think you're smart enough to figure them out if you stop punishing yourself long enough to try. Sienna laughed, but it was bitter. I don't know how to stop. Start small. Take a breath. Let yourself feel whatever you're feeling without trying to fix it. And then what? Then you take another breath. And another. Until it gets easier. She looked at him, her eyes glassy. What if it doesn't get easier? Then it doesn't, but at least you'll know you tried. Sienna wiped her eyes, frustrated with herself for crying again. I hate this. I hate feeling like I don't have control over my own life. You never had control. None of us do. We just pretend we do so we don't lose our minds. That's depressing. It's honest. There you go again with the honesty. Would you rather I lie? Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I'd rather hear that everything's going to be fine and I just need to hold on a little longer. Everything's going to be fine. You just need to hold on a little longer. She stared at him. You don't believe that. No, but you wanted to hear it. Despite everything, Sienna laughed. You're the worst. I know. They sat in silence for a while, watching the waves. Eventually, Sienna leaned her head on his shoulder, just like she had on the hillside. And just like before, Liam went still, afraid to break the moment. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Why haven't you dated anyone since Emma's mom left? Liam thought about that. I tried, a few times, but it never felt right. I'd go on a date and spend the whole time thinking about Emma, wondering if whoever I was with would be good with her, if they'd stick around, if they'd hurt her when they left. He paused. It was easier to just not try. Don't you get lonely? Yeah, sometimes. What do you do about it? Nothing. I just live with it. Sienna was quiet. Then she said, I've been lonely for years, even when Derek was there, maybe especially when he was there. Why didn't you leave? Because I thought I could fix it. I thought if I just worked harder, made more money, gave him everything he wanted, he'd come back to me, to us. Her voice cracked. But he never did. And now I realize I was chasing someone who was already gone. Liam's chest ached. I'm sorry. Don't be. You were right. This isn't on me. He made his choice. Doesn't make it hurt less? No, it doesn't. They fell silent again. The sun was starting to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the sand. Liam knew they should leave soon. It was a long drive back, and he needed to pick up Emma from school. But he didn't want to move. Didn't want to break whatever fragile thing was building between them. Liam? Sienna's voice was soft. Yeah? I don't want to go home yet. Okay. Can we stay? Just for a little while longer? Yeah, we can do that. So they stayed. They sat on the beach as the sun sank toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. They didn't talk. They just existed together, watching the world turn. And for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt alone. When they finally got back in the car, it was almost dark. Sienna checked her phone and winced. 23 missed calls, she said. Derek? Worse, my VP of operations. Apparently there's a crisis at the office. You gonna call back? I should. She stared at the phone. But I don't want to. Then don't. I can't just ignore it, Liam. People are depending on me. And you're allowed to take a day off. That's what delegation is for. Sienna looked torn. Then she turned the phone off again. You're a bad influence. The worst. They drove in silence for a while. Then Sienna said, I meant what I said earlier about not wanting to go home. I know. I don't know how to be in that house anymore. Everything reminds me of him, of what I lost, of how stupid I was for not seeing it coming. You weren't stupid. Feels like I was. You were trusting. That's not the same thing. Sienna shook her head. I keep replaying everything in my mind, looking for signs I missed, wondering if there was a moment where I could have stopped this. You can't change the past. I know, but I can't stop thinking about it either. Liam glanced at her. You got somewhere else you can stay? Friend's place? Hotel? Why? Because if being in that house makes you miserable, you don't have to be there. I can't just leave. Mason's there. So bring him with you. She blinked. I can't uproot him like that. Why not? His dad already uprooted him. At least this way he gets to be with you instead of sitting alone in a house that's full of bad memories. Sienna was quiet for a long moment. I hadn't thought of it like that. Think about it now. She chewed her lip, considering. Where would we even go? Wherever you want. Hotel, Airbnb. My place has a spare room if you don't want to deal with strangers. She looked at him, surprised. You'd let us stay with you? Yeah, why not? Because that's a lot to ask. You're not asking. I'm offering. Liam, look, I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying the option's there if you want it. Sienna stared at him, her expression unreadable. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Being so kind. Most people would have walked away by now. I'm not most people. No, you're not. She looked down at her hands. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, we'll stay with you, just for a few days, until I figure out what to do next. Liam nodded, trying to ignore the way his heart rate kicked up. Okay, but I'm paying for groceries, so deal. They pulled up outside Sienna's house a little after 8. The windows were dark except for Mason's room. Sienna stared at the house like it was a stranger's. I'll pack some bags, she said. Talk to Mason. We can leave in the morning. Sounds good. She didn't move, just sat there, staring. You okay? Liam asked. Yeah, just... She trailed off. This feels like giving up. It's not giving up. It's making a choice that's better for you. Is it? You tell me. She took a deep breath and nodded. Yeah, it is. She got out of the car and walked to her front door. Before she went inside, she turned back and waved. Liam waved back, then drove home, his mind spinning. He just invited a woman and her kid to move into his apartment, a woman he'd kissed twice in 2 days, a woman whose life was imploding, a woman he was pretty sure he was falling for. This was either the best decision he'd ever made or the stupidest. Probably both. When he got home, Mrs. Nguyen had already put Emma to bed. He thanked her, paid her for the extra hours, and collapsed on the couch. His phone buzzed. Another text from Sienna. Mason's okay with it. We'll come by tomorrow morning. Thank you, Liam, for everything. He typed back, see you tomorrow, and set his phone down. Then he sat there in the dark, wondering what the hell he'd just gotten himself into. Liam spent the next morning in a state of controlled panic. He cleaned his apartment like his life depended on it, vacuuming under furniture that hadn't been moved in months, scrubbing the bathroom grout with a toothbrush, reorganizing the closet in the spare room that had become a dumping ground for everything he didn't know what to do with. Emma watched from the doorway, confused. Why are you cleaning so much? She asked. We're going to have guests for a few days. Who? Remember Mason from Derek's house? Emma's eyes lit up. Mason's coming here? Yeah, him and his mom. Why? Liam paused, trying to figure out how to explain this to a 5-year-old. They need a place to stay for a little while. Their house is getting fixed. It wasn't exactly a lie, just a version of the truth a kindergartner could handle. Can I show Mason my dollhouse? If he wants to see it, sure. Is his mom nice? Yeah, baby, she's very nice. Emma seemed satisfied with that and went back to her cartoons. Liam kept cleaning, his nerves ratcheting higher with each passing minute. He told himself this was fine, just a friend helping another friend. Nothing complicated about it, except it was complicated, because he'd kissed Sienna twice, because he couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd looked at him on the beach, because having her in his space, in his home, felt like crossing a line he couldn't uncross. His phone buzzed. We're on our way. Liam took a breath and looked around. The apartment was as clean as it was going to get. The spare room had fresh sheets. There were groceries in the fridge. He'd done everything he could think of to make this easier. Now he just had to survive it. 20 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Liam opened it to find Sienna standing there with 2 suitcases and Mason beside her, looking sullen and uncomfortable. Hey, Sienna said. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept. Hey, come in. They stepped inside, and Mason immediately spotted Emma peeking around the corner. The 2 kids stared at each other for a moment. Then Emma waved. Hi, Mason. Hey, you want to see my dollhouse? Mason shrugged, trying to look like he didn't care, but Liam saw the flicker of interest in his eyes. I guess. Emma grabbed his hand and dragged him down the hall. Mason let himself be led, and Liam caught the ghost of a smile on the kid's face. Sienna watched them go, her shoulders sagging with relief. I was worried he'd refuse to come. He say anything on the drive over? Not much, just asked how long we were staying. She set the suitcases down. I told him a few days. I don't know if he believed me. Did you believe you? She looked at him. No. Liam picked up the suitcases and carried them to the spare room. Sienna followed, looking around the small space, a twin bed, a dresser, a window that looked out over the parking lot. It wasn't much, but it was clean. This is perfect, she said. Thank you. It's just a room. It's more than that. She turned to face him. It's a place where I don't have to pretend everything's fine. That means something. Liam wanted to close the distance between them, pull her into his arms, tell her she didn't have to pretend anything with him. But Mason was just down the hall, and this whole situation was already complicated enough. You hungry? He asked instead. I can make lunch. I'm not really... You need to eat. Sienna smiled faintly. There you go again, telling me what I need. Someone has to. She followed him to the kitchen and he started pulling things out of the fridge. Bread, cheese, turkey, lettuce. The kind of simple meal he could make without thinking. Sienna leaned against the counter, watching him. Your apartment's nice. It's small. It's lived in. That's different than nice, I guess. But it feels like a home. What does your place feel like? She was quiet for a moment. A museum. Everything perfectly arranged. Nothing out of place, like we were all just exhibits pretending to be a family. Liam sliced tomatoes, keeping his hands busy. You don't have to go back there, you know. Not if you don't want to. I have to eventually. All my things are there. Mason's things. So get them and leave. It's not that simple. Why not? Because Derek's contesting the divorce. He wants the house. And his lawyer's saying that if I abandon the property, it strengthens his case. Liam's jaw tightened. That's bullshit. That's the law, apparently. So fight him. I am fighting him, but it's exhausting and expensive, and every time I talk to my lawyer, I feel like I'm drowning all over again. He set the knife down and looked at her. Then stop fighting alone. What's that supposed to mean? It means you've been handling everything by yourself for so long, you forgot what it's like to let someone help. So let me help. Whatever you need. Someone to talk to, someone to vent to, someone to just sit with you while you figure out what's next. I'm here. Sienna's eyes welled up. Why are you so good to me? Because you deserve it. You don't know that. Yeah, I do. She wiped her eyes, frustrated with herself. I'm so tired of crying. Then cry until you're done. There's no deadline on grief. I'm not grieving. I'm angry. Anger's just grief in a different costume. She stared at him. Where do you get these lines? Therapy. After Emma's mom left, I spent 6 months talking to someone who charged me $200 an hour to tell me things I already knew but needed to hear out loud. Did it help? Eventually, once I stopped being stubborn about it, Sienna laughed despite herself. I can't imagine you being stubborn. I'm the worst. Just ask Emma. As if on cue, Emma appeared in the doorway with Mason trailing behind her. Daddy, can Mason stay in my room? I don't want him to be alone. Liam glanced at Sienna, who looked like she might cry again. That's up to Mason, baby. Mason shrugged, trying to act indifferent. I don't care. He says he doesn't care, but he smiled when I showed him my dollhouse, Emma announced. I didn't smile. You did. I saw it. Mason's ears turned red, but he didn't argue. Sienna covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. Okay, Liam said. Mason can set up in Emma's room if he wants, but you both have to clean up your toys before bed. Deal? Deal! Emma grabbed Mason's hand again. Come on, I'll show you where we can put your stuff. They disappeared back down the hall, and Sienna let out a shaky breath. I don't know how you do it. Do what? Make everything feel so normal. Like this isn't the weirdest situation in the world. It's only weird if we make it weird. Liam, my life is falling apart, and I'm staying in your apartment. It's objectively weird. Maybe, but it's also fine. We're just two people helping each other out. That's it. Is it? The question hung in the air between them. Liam knew what she was really asking, if this was just about helping or if it was something more. If the kisses meant anything or if they were just desperate attempts to feel something other than pain. He didn't have an answer. So he went back to making sandwiches. They ate lunch together, the four of them crowded around Liam's small kitchen table. Emma chattered nonstop, filling the silence with stories about school and her friends and a caterpillar she'd found on the playground. Mason mostly listened, but every now and then he'd add something, and Emma would light up like he'd just told her the most interesting thing in the world. Sienna watched them with a mixture of relief and sadness. Liam watched her, trying to read the expressions that flickered across her face too fast to name. After lunch, the kids went back to Emma's room, and Sienna helped Liam clean up. They worked in comfortable silence, falling into an easy rhythm. She washed, he dried, neither of them acknowledging how domestic it felt. I need to go into the office tomorrow, Sienna said eventually. Just for a few hours. I've been dodging calls for 2 days, and people are starting to panic. You want me to watch Mason? Would you? Yeah. Emma's got school, but I can take him with me to drop her off and pick her up. We'll figure it out. Thank you. She handed him a plate. I don't know what I'd do without you right now. You'd figure it out. You always do. I'm not so sure about that anymore. I am. She looked at him, and there it was again, that charged moment where the air between them felt too thick to breathe. Liam forced himself to look away, focusing on drying the plate in his hands. I should unpack, Sienna said, stepping back. Get settled. Yeah, okay. She left the kitchen, and Liam stood there alone, his heart pounding for no good reason. This was going to be harder than he'd thought. That night, after the kids were asleep, Liam and Sienna sat on the couch with the TV on low. They weren't really watching it, just letting the noise fill the silence. Sienna had changed into sweatpants and an old t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked younger like this, less polished, more real. Mason seems okay, Liam said. He's pretending, same as me. Maybe pretending's all you need to do right now. That's not sustainable. Doesn't have to be. Just has to get you through today. Sienna pulled her knees up to her chest.
Derek called me 17 times today. You answer? No, but he left voicemails, wants to talk, says we can work this out if I just stop being unreasonable. Liam's hands curled into fists. Unreasonable. That's what he said. He walked out on you and your kid, and you're the one being unreasonable. Apparently. What do you want to do?
Block his number, change my name, move to another state. She laughed bitterly. But I can't because of Mason, because of the divorce, because of 1,000 reasons that all add up to me being stuck. You're not stuck. You're in a hard situation. That's different. Doesn't feel different. Liam shifted to face her. What would you do if you could do anything? If there were no lawyers, no custody battles, no company to run, what would you want?
Sienna was quiet for a long time. I'd want to wake up and not feel like I'm constantly bracing for impact. I'd want Mason to be happy. I'd want to remember what it's like to do something just because I want to, not because it's expected. She paused. I'd want to be with someone who actually sees me. Derek didn't see you? Derek saw a version of me, the successful one, the one who had it all together. But the real me? The messy, uncertain, struggling me? He didn't want anything to do with her. Then he's an idiot. Sienna smiled sadly. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just hard to love. You're not. How would you know? Liam looked at her, and before he could stop himself, the words came out. Because I'm falling for you, and it's not hard at all. Sienna went completely still. Liam, I know this is bad timing. I know you're not in a place to hear this. I know I should probably keep my mouth shut and let you figure out your life without adding more complications. But you asked, and I'm done pretending I don't feel it. She stared at him, her eyes wide. You can't. We can't. I'm not asking you to do anything about it. I'm just telling you the truth. Why? Because you said you wanted someone who sees you, and I do. I see you, Sienna, not the CEO version or the perfect mom version. Just you. And I think you're incredible. Tears spilled down her cheeks. This isn't fair. I know. I'm a mess. My life's a disaster. I don't even know who I am anymore. So figure it out. I'll wait. What if I can't? What if I'm too broken to fix? You're not broken. You're hurting. There's a difference. She shook her head, crying harder now. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you. That's not your call to make. Sienna covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. Liam moved closer, pulling her into his arms. She resisted for half a second, then collapsed against him, sobbing into his chest. He held her while she cried, one hand stroking her hair, the other wrapped around her back. He didn't say anything, didn't try to fix it, just let her fall apart. When she finally quieted, she didn't pull away. She just stayed there, her face pressed against his shirt, her breathing uneven. I'm scared, she whispered. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of how much I want this to be real. It is real. But what if it's just because I'm vulnerable? What if I'm only feeling this because you're here and Derek's gone and I'm desperate not to be alone? Then we'll figure it out, together. She pulled back enough to look at him, her eyes red and swollen. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. We just keep showing up, keep being honest, keep giving each other space to figure out what we want. That's it. And if I hurt you, then you hurt me. I'll survive. I don't want to hurt you. I know, but the risk is worth it. Sienna searched his face, looking for doubt, for hesitation, for any sign that he didn't mean what he was saying. But Liam just looked back at her, steady and sure. Finally, she leaned in and kissed him. This time there was no desperation, no uncertainty, just a quiet kind of honesty. Two people admitting that whatever this was, they wanted to find out together. When they broke apart, Sienna rested her forehead against his. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I. But you're willing to try. Yeah, I am. She nodded slowly. Okay,
Me too. They sat there for a long time, wrapped up in each other, not talking, not planning, just being. Eventually, Sienna's breathing evened out and Liam realized she'd fallen asleep against him. He shifted carefully, trying not to wake her, and grabbed a blanket from the back of the couch. He draped it over both of them and settled in, holding her while she slept. This was insane. He knew that. Knew he was getting in way over his head with a woman who was still legally married, still figuring out her life, still processing the wreckage of a relationship that had just imploded. But he also knew that when she'd looked at him and said she was scared, he'd meant it when he told her he'd wait. Because this, whatever this was, felt like something worth fighting for. The next morning, Sienna was gone before he woke up. He found a note on the kitchen counter. Went to the office. Didn't want to wake you. Thank you for last night, for everything. I meant what I said. I'm willing to try. Liam smiled and tucked the note in his pocket. He got the kids fed and dressed, dropped Emma at school with Mason in tow, and spent the day trying to keep a 12-year-old entertained. They went to the park, got ice cream, played video games at the apartment. Mason didn't say much, but he seemed lighter than he had the day before, less tense. Your dad's cool, Mason said at one point. Liam blinked. Thanks, buddy. My dad never just hung out with me. He was always working, or on his phone, or telling me to be quiet because he was busy. Liam's chest tightened. I'm sorry. Mason shrugged. It's okay. I'm used to it. You shouldn't have to be used to it. The kid looked at him, something vulnerable in his expression. Do you think my mom's going to be okay? Yeah, I do. How do you know? Because she's tough, and because she's got you. That's a pretty good reason to keep fighting. Mason nodded, but he still looked uncertain. What if my dad comes back? Do you want him to? I don't know. Sometimes I hate him, but sometimes I just miss him. Is that stupid? No, it's not stupid. It's human. My mom says I don't have to talk to him if I don't want to, but I feel bad, like I'm being mean. You're not being mean. You're protecting yourself. There's a difference. Mason was quiet for a moment. You're not like other adults. How so? You don't lie to make me feel better. You just tell me the truth. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Good, I think. It's just different. They picked up Emma from school, and the three of them spent the afternoon together. When Sienna finally came home around 6, she looked drained but more present than she had in days. How was the office? Liam asked. Chaotic. But I survived. She looked at Mason. How was your day? Fine. Just fine? We got ice cream and played at the park. It was good. Sienna's eyes met Liam's over Mason's head, and he saw the gratitude there. I'm glad. They made dinner together, spaghetti and salad, nothing fancy. The kids set the table, and they all sat down like a strange makeshift family. Emma talked about her day. Mason added a few comments. Sienna asked questions. Liam watched it all unfold, feeling something settle in his chest. This wasn't perfect. It was messy and complicated and probably unsustainable in the long term. But right now, in this moment, it felt right. After dinner, the kids went to play, and Liam and Sienna cleaned up together. They didn't talk much, just worked side by side, comfortable in the silence. When the dishes were done, Sienna turned to him. I signed the final divorce papers today. Liam went still. Yeah? Yeah, my lawyer's filing them tomorrow. Derek can contest it all he wants, but it's happening. I'm done. How do you feel? Lighter, scared, relieved, all of it at once. That's fair? She stepped closer, her hands finding his. I meant what I said last night, about trying, about wanting this. I know, but I need time to figure out who I am without Derek, to make sure I'm not just using you as a distraction. I'm not asking you to rush. I know, but I wanted to say it out loud so you know what you're getting into. Liam squeezed her hands. I know what I'm getting into. Do you? Yeah. A brilliant, complicated woman who's figuring out how to rebuild her life. And I'm here for all of it. Sienna's eyes filled with tears again. Why are you so patient with me? Because you're worth it. She kissed him then, soft and slow, like she was trying to memorize the feeling. And when she pulled back, she was smiling. Okay, she said. Okay, what? Okay, let's do this. Let's try. No promises, no expectations, Just honesty and patience and seeing where this goes. I can work with that. Good. She kissed him again, quicker this time. Now come on, we've got 2 kids who probably need supervision before they destroy your apartment. They walked back to the living room together, and Liam thought that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something real. Something messy and uncertain and absolutely terrifying, but real. And that was enough. 3 days turned into a week. A week turned into 2. Sienna and Mason were still living in Liam's apartment, and nobody was talking about when they'd leave. It was starting to feel less like a temporary arrangement and more like a life they were all building together. Emma and Mason had become inseparable. She dragged him into every game she invented, and he pretended to be annoyed but always played along. Sienna cooked dinner most nights, insisting it was the least she could do. Liam would come home from work to find the apartment smelling like garlic and herbs, music playing low, and the sound of kids laughing in the next room. It felt too good to be real, which meant Liam kept waiting for it to fall apart. On a Wednesday morning, Sienna's lawyer called. Liam was in the kitchen making coffee when he heard her voice change in the next room, from relaxed to sharp in seconds. What do you mean he's demanding joint custody? A pause. He hasn't called Mason in 3 weeks. How is that grounds for... Another pause. Longer this time. Fine. Set up the mediation. I'll be there. She hung up and stood there for a moment, her back to him, shoulders rigid. Everything okay? Liam asked, even though he knew it wasn't. Derek wants joint custody, 50-50 split. His lawyer says if I don't agree, they'll drag this out for months. So let them drag it out. I can't afford months, Liam, financially or emotionally. And Mason? Her voice cracked. Mason doesn't deserve to be stuck in the middle of this. Liam set down his coffee mug and walked over to her. What do you want to do? I want to tell Derek to go to hell. I want to fight him on every single thing until he realizes he doesn't get to walk away and then waltz back in whenever it's convenient. She turned to face him, her eyes blazing. But my lawyer says that makes me look vindictive, unstable, and it could hurt my case. So you're supposed to just roll over? I'm supposed to be reasonable, cooperative, put Mason's needs first. She laughed bitterly, which is exactly what I've been doing for 12 years while Derek did whatever he wanted. Then stop doing what you're supposed to do and start doing what you actually want. Sienna stared at him. It's not that simple. It is that simple. You just don't want it to be because being complicated gives you an excuse not to choose. Her jaw dropped. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true. You don't understand. I understand that you're terrified of making the wrong choice, so you're letting other people make choices for you. Your lawyer, Derek, the courts, everyone except you. Because I don't trust myself. The words burst out of her, raw and desperate. Every choice I've made in the last 8 years has been wrong. I chose to ignore the warning signs. I chose to work instead of fight for my marriage. I chose to pretend everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. So no, I don't trust myself to make the right call now. Liam took a breath, forcing himself to soften. Okay, then trust me. What? Trust me. I'm telling you that whatever you decide, it's going to be okay. If you want to fight Derek for full custody, fight. If you want to agree to mediation and split it down the middle, do that. If you want to pack up Mason and move to another state, I'll help you load the car. Just stop waiting for someone to tell you what the right answer is. There isn't one. There's just what you can live with. Sienna's eyes filled with tears. What if I choose wrong? Then you choose again. That's all any of us can do. She looked at him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. Then she nodded. Okay. Okay? I'm going to fight him, not because I'm vindictive, because Mason deserves a parent who actually shows up, and Derek hasn't earned the right to 50% of anything. Good. My lawyer's going to hate this. Your lawyer works for you, not the other way around. Sienna smiled despite herself. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just tired of watching you second-guess yourself. She stepped forward and kissed him, quick but certain. Thank you. For what? For not letting me hide. The mediation was scheduled for the following Monday. Sienna was a wreck in the days leading up to it, snapping at people at work, barely eating, pacing the apartment at night when she thought everyone was asleep. Liam would find her on the couch at 2 in the morning, staring at nothing, and he'd sit with her until she was ready to talk or sleep or just exist in silence. The night before the mediation, she came into the kitchen where Liam was doing dishes and said, "I need to ask you something." "Okay." "If this goes badly, if Derek gets joint custody and I have to split time with Mason, will you still want this? Want us?" Liam turned off the water and faced her. "Why would that change anything?" "Because it makes everything harder, more complicated. I'd have Mason half the time and be alone the other half. And you'd be stuck in the middle of a custody arrangement with a guy who hates you for being with me. Derek doesn't get a say in who I'm with, and neither does a custody arrangement. But, Sienna, listen to me. I'm not here because it's easy. I'm here because I want to be. Whatever happens tomorrow doesn't change that." She looked like she wanted to believe him but couldn't quite get there. "What if I fall apart?" "Then you fall apart and I'll be here when you're ready to get back up." "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple. I love you." The words hung in the air between them. Liam hadn't planned to say it, hadn't even realized it was true until it came out of his mouth. But now it was out there, and he couldn't take it back. Sienna's breath caught. "You... what?" "I love you. I've probably loved you since I found you sitting in that driveway. I just didn't let myself admit it." "Liam, you can't." "I can. And I do. And you don't have to say anything back. I just needed you to know that whatever happens tomorrow, it doesn't change how I feel." Sienna stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Then she closed the distance between them and kissed him hard, her hands gripping his shirt like she was afraid he'd disappear. When they broke apart, she was crying and laughing at the same time. "I love you too. I think I have for a while. I was just too scared to say it." "You're saying it now." "Yeah, I am." She kissed him again, softer this time. "I love you, Liam Carter, even though this is terrifying and complicated and probably a terrible idea. Best terrible idea I ever had." She laughed through her tears. "We're a mess." "Yeah, but we're a mess together." They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, and for the first time in weeks, Sienna looked like she believed things might actually be okay. The mediation was brutal. Derek showed up with his lawyer and an attitude that made Liam want to punch him in the face. Sienna had asked Liam to stay home with the kids, but she texted him updates throughout the day. "He says I abandoned the house, that I'm unstable. His lawyer's claiming I put my career before my family. They're pushing for full custody, not just joint." Each text made Liam angrier, but he kept it together for Emma and Mason, who were blissfully unaware of what was happening across town. When Sienna finally came home that evening, she looked like she'd been through a war, but there was something different in her eyes, something fierce. "What happened?" Liam asked. "I told them no." "No to what?" "All of it. The joint custody, the accusations, the implication that I'm a bad mother because I left a house that was suffocating me." She dropped her bag on the floor. "I told Derek that if he wanted to be a father, he should have thought about that before he walked out. And if he wants to fight me for custody, I'll see him in court." "What did he say?" "Nothing. He just sat there looking shocked, like he couldn't believe I was standing up to him." She laughed, but it was edged with exhaustion. "My lawyer nearly had a heart attack, but I don't care. I'm done negotiating with someone who doesn't respect me." "Good for you." "Yeah, good for me." She sank onto the couch. "Now I just have to pray the judge sees it the same way." "They will." "You don't know that." "I know you. And I know any judge with half a brain will see that Mason's better off with you." Sienna looked at him, and something in her expression softened. "How do you always know what to say?" "I don't. I just say what I'm thinking and hope it helps." "It does, more than you know." The court date was set for 3 weeks later. In the meantime, life settled into a strange new rhythm. Sienna officially moved out of her old house, hiring movers to pack up her and Mason's things. Most of it went into storage, but the essentials came to Liam's apartment, which was now bursting at the seams. "This place is too small for all of us," Sienna said one night, looking around at the boxes stacked in every corner. "We'll make it work. Liam, you can barely turn around without hitting a suitcase. This isn't sustainable. So we find a bigger place." She blinked. "What?" "We find a bigger place. Somewhere with enough room for all of us." "You mean like together?" "Yeah, together, unless you don't want to." Sienna stared at him. You want to move in together? Officially? We're already living together. This just makes it permanent. But what if the court thing doesn't go my way? What if Derek gets partial custody and I have to... Then we deal with it. Together. Same as we've been dealing with everything else. She shook her head, but she was smiling. You're insane. Probably. You in or not? Yeah. I'm in. They started looking at places the next weekend. Nothing fancy. Just a 3-bedroom house with a yard big enough for the kids to play in. They found one in a neighborhood halfway between Liam's work and Sienna's office, close to a good school for Emma and Mason. It needed work. The kitchen was outdated, the carpets were stained, and the backyard was overgrown. But it had good bones. And when Liam saw the way Sienna's face lit up when she walked through the front door, he knew it was the one. I can see us here, she said, standing in the empty living room. I can see the kids running around. I can see us making this a home. Then let's do it. They put in an offer that night. It was accepted 2 days later. The court hearing happened on a gray Thursday morning. Sienna wore a navy suit and her game face, but Liam could see the fear underneath. He drove her to the courthouse and waited outside while she went in. 2 hours later, she emerged, and he knew immediately from her expression what had happened. I got full custody, she said, her voice shaking. Derek gets supervised visitation twice a month, and only if Mason agrees to it. Liam pulled her into his arms, and she started crying, deep, shuddering sobs that sounded like relief and grief and exhaustion all mixed together. It's over, she said into his chest. It's finally over. Yeah, it is. They stood there in the courthouse parking lot, holding each other, and Liam felt something shift, like they'd both been holding their breath for weeks and could finally exhale. When they got home, Mason was waiting on the front steps. He looked up when they pulled in, his expression guarded. What happened? He asked. Sienna crouched down in front of him. You're staying with me, full time. Your dad can visit, but only if you want him to, and only when there's another adult there to make sure you're safe. Mason's face crumpled. So he's really not coming back? No, honey, he's not. The kid started crying and Sienna pulled him into her arms. Liam watched from a few feet away, his chest aching. Because this was the thing nobody talked about. That even when you won, it still hurt. That even when someone got what they deserved, it didn't erase the damage they'd done. After a while, Mason pulled back and wiped his eyes. Is Liam staying? Sienna glanced at Liam, then back at her son. Yeah, if that's okay with you. Mason looked at Liam, really looked at him. You're not going to leave, are you? No, Liam said. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? I promise. Mason nodded slowly. Then he walked over and hugged Liam, quick and awkward, but real. And Liam hugged him back, swallowing past the lump in his throat. They moved into the new house 2 weeks later. It was chaos. Boxes everywhere, furniture in the wrong rooms, nobody able to find anything. But it was theirs. Emma claimed the smaller bedroom upstairs and immediately started decorating it with drawings and stuffed animals. Mason took the bigger one and set up his desk by the window. Sienna and Liam's room was at the end of the hall, and the first night they slept there, she turned to him in the dark and said, I can't believe this is real. It's real. I keep waiting for something to go wrong. Something probably will, but we'll handle it. How are you so calm about everything? I'm not calm. I'm just choosing to believe that we're going to be okay. And if we're not, then we'll figure it out. Same as always. Sienna kissed him, slow and deep. I love you. I love you too. They fell asleep tangled up in each other, and for the first time in months, neither of them had nightmares. The weeks that followed weren't perfect. Mason struggled with the reality of his dad's absence, and there were days when he shut down completely, refusing to talk or eat or do anything but stare at his phone. Sienna's company hit a rough patch, and she spent long nights at the office trying to keep everything afloat. Emma went through a phase where she woke up crying, convinced that her mom was coming back and Sienna would leave. But they got through it, together. Liam learned that love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about showing up every single day, even when it was hard. It was about holding someone while they cried and not trying to fix it. It was about making breakfast for 4 people when you were exhausted and letting a 12-year-old beat you at video games because he needed to win something. It was about choosing each other over and over again, even when it would be easier to walk away. One Saturday morning, about 3 months after they'd moved in, Liam woke up to find Sienna already awake, staring at the ceiling. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" "About how different my life is now. A year ago, I was married to someone who didn't see me, living in a house that felt like a prison, pretending to be happy when I was dying inside." She turned to look at him. "And now I'm here, with you, in a house that actually feels like home, and I'm happier than I've ever been." "Yeah?" "Yeah." She smiled. "It's terrifying, but it's real. And I think that's what I've been looking for my whole life, something real." "Me too." They lay there for a while, just being. Then Sienna said, "I want to show you something." She got out of bed and led him to the kitchen. On the counter was a piece of paper, a letter, written in her handwriting. "I wrote this last night," she said. "I couldn't sleep and I kept thinking about everything that's happened. And I realized something." "What?" "That the worst thing that ever happened to me turned into the best thing. Derek leaving, it destroyed me. But it also set me free. And if he hadn't walked out, I never would have found this. Found you." Liam read the letter. It was addressed to no one in particular, just a stream of consciousness about pain and healing and second chances, about learning to forgive yourself for not seeing the end coming, about choosing to believe in love even when every logical part of you says it's too risky. "This is beautiful," he said. "I'm thinking about starting a blog, sharing my story. Maybe it'll help someone else who's going through the same thing." "I think that's a great idea." "Yeah?" "Yeah, you've got a lot to say, and people need to hear it." Sienna smiled, and there was something lighter in her expression than he'd ever seen before, like she'd finally let go of the weight she'd been carrying for so long. A few weeks later, on a Sunday afternoon, the four of them drove out to the overlook where Liam had taken Sienna that first day. The kids ran ahead, racing to see who could get to the top of the hill first, while Liam and Sienna walked slowly, hand in hand. When they reached the clearing, the view was just as breathtaking as it had been the first time. The valley stretched out below them, the river glittering in the sunlight, the sky so blue it almost hurt to look at. "I can't believe it's only been a few months," Sienna said. "It feels like a lifetime ago." "A lot's happened." "Yeah, it has." She turned to him. "I never thanked you for that first night, for staying when I asked, for not letting me give up." "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do, because you saved me, Liam. Not in some dramatic fairy tale way, but in the real way. You showed up, you saw me. You didn't try to fix me or change me. You just loved me, and that's what I needed." Liam pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her waist. "You saved me too, you know." "How?" "I was going through the motions, taking care of Emma, going to work, coming home. Repeat. I wasn't living, I was just surviving. And then you crashed into my life and reminded me what it feels like to actually want something." Sienna kissed him, soft and sweet. "So what do we want now?" "This. Exactly this." They stood there for a long time, watching the kids chase each other around the clearing, listening to their laughter echo across the hills. And Liam thought about how much had changed since that first desperate midnight call. How a single choice to show up had led to all of this. A new home, a blended family, a love he hadn't known he was looking for. It wasn't perfect. It was messy and complicated and sometimes exhausting. But it was real. And that was enough. As the sun started to dip toward the horizon, Mason and Emma came running back, breathless and grinning. "Can we come back here again?" Emma asked. "Yeah, baby. We can come back whenever you want." "Good, because this is my favorite place." Mason nodded in agreement. "Mine too." They piled back into the car as the sky turned orange and pink. On the drive home, Sienna reached over and took Liam's hand, lacing their fingers together. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For this. For choosing us. For not giving up when it got hard. I told you, I'm not going anywhere." "I know, and I'm not either." They drove back through the fading light, the kids talking and laughing in the back seat, the radio playing low. And as Liam pulled into their driveway, their home, he realized that this was what happiness looked like. Not some pristine, Instagram-perfect version, but the real, lived-in kind, the kind that came from showing up every day and choosing love even when it was messy, even when it was hard, even when you didn't know if you were doing it right. Because in the end, the only thing that mattered was that you kept trying. That night, After the kids were asleep, Liam and Sienna sat on the back porch, looking up at the stars. The air was cool, and Sienna was wrapped in one of his sweatshirts, her head resting on his shoulder. "You know what I realized today?" she said. "What?" "That I'm not scared anymore. Not of being alone. Not of making the wrong choice. Not of losing control." She looked up at him. "I'm just here, present, and that's enough." "Yeah, it is. I spent so many years trying to be perfect, trying to prove I had it all together, and all it did was make me miserable. So what now? Now I just be, imperfect, messy, real, and I let myself be loved for all of it." Liam kissed the top of her head. "I love you for all of it." "I know, and that's the best part." They sat there in this quiet, the world around them settling into night. And Liam thought about how far they'd both come, about the wreckage they'd started with and the life they'd built from it. It hadn't been easy. It probably never would be. But it was worth it. Because love, the real, honest, messy kind, was always worth it. And as he sat there holding the woman he loved, surrounded by the life they'd built together, Liam finally understood what it meant to be home. Not a place, not a house, but a choice you made every single day to show up for the people who mattered. That was the lesson he'd learned. That was the truth he'd carry with him, that sometimes the worst nights lead to the best mornings, that sometimes falling apart is the only way to put yourself back together, and that sometimes the people who save you are the ones you didn't even know you needed. Sienna squeezed his hand, and he squeezed back. "I'm glad you answered that call," she said. "Me too. Think we would have ended up here if you hadn't? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. I'm glad we don't have to find out." "Yeah, me too." They stayed there until the stars came out, until the night wrapped around them like a blanket, until the only sound was their breathing and the distant hum of the world moving on without them. And when they finally went inside, locking the door behind them, they did it together. Because that was what they'd promised each other, to face whatever came next side by side. Not as broken people hiding from the pain, but as two souls who'd chosen something real. And that made all the difference.